is that how can the most Jews be murdered with the least Germans being involved? That was the question. Whatever the mechanism was, whatever they came up that was the response to that question. And so, if you starve or beat a human being, down to being a skeleton, starved to being a walking skeleton, or beat in his entire body, you still did not destroy him, his self. He still can have dignity. In order to really destroy a human being, what you have to do is you have to take away his innocence. You have to take away his dignity. And that is the solace and of the comfort that they were deprived by the Nazis. And that is the world we are living in. We are living in, as we speak, with 90 years old Germans, tens of thousands of them. They are living in the strongest economy in Europe. They have very good retirement plans. A bunch of 90 years old, 95 years old Germans are still alive. They say their night prayer, they go to sleep, play around with their grandkids, and they are okay. Because if they wouldn't be okay, then they would, at least some of them, have penned a book saying, look, I got away with it, I wasn't high-rank Nazi, but I do have to share what pressures me from inside. I never read a book like that. And the Sonderkommando members, on the other hand, they all feel guilty. They don't sleep well. And the last one of them is alive in LA. Did I tell you that? 94 years old, a Greek Jew. Just met him last week. And he says, don't call me a survivor. In a moral sense, I'm not a survivor. And I just wrote sort of an epitaph for him. I mean, for God's sake, he's alive, and bis 120, let him be alive until 120. But in this poem I wrote, bury my eyes on the North Pole and bury my ears on the South Pole so that I don't hear what I saw. In other words, I don't know how these people carry themselves. And while the ones who were in the well-ironed uniform and arms standing there, they are doing just fine. So this is the mystery, and that's why we need a God. I've been promoting this movie. I mean, this is slowing down clearly, but I've been around 20, 30 countries, and I spoke from church groups all the way to convicted criminals. And my mission relating to this movie is twofold. On the one hand, I do want to touch the hearts and the minds, especially of the young people, because I see that anti-Semitism, at least in Europe for sure, it's rising in the people of under 30. That's where it is fashionable. They are extremely human to the refugees, the new Jews, and they have this growing suspicion with the Jews again, with the Israelis. We are not cool anymore in European youth mind. And the other mission I had is I wanted to dispel this, to fight this rather widespread and simplistic notion that somehow after what took place during the years of the Shoah, somehow it is anachronistic or even wrong to believe in God. And if you ask me, my Jewishness and all that, I wouldn't believe in God if there was no Holocaust, I don't think. My path to faith it happened in Poland, and I visited the place. I was 87, I was 20 years old, 19. And what meant to be a one-day visit, somehow at the end of the day, they sort of told me, like, we are closing here. And I felt I accomplished nothing to be there for one day, even though I was there from 10 a.m. And I felt like I have to come back tomorrow. This place, the camp, the museum of the Lager, felt like home to me. You know, I arrived and I was expecting pain, and I went through that stage of pain, and I felt like this is sort of like a black hole. It's unfolding into something, and I felt like I understand how people arrive here. I don't know how they leave. And I thought, I'm just going to throw my shoes on the top and somehow just, disappear. But that didn't happen, and I had to leave, so I ran to the room. There was a 4-story building, like maybe a mile away, the closest possible place to Auschwitz. And I spoke Polish, I was in the university. And, I knocked into the door, and I said, I'd like to rent a room. And they were like, here? And no one ever rented a room. I mean, you have to understand, if you know Poland, that there is a reason why the largest extermination camp was in Auschwitz. It is the least developed part of Poland. Lots of trains, not very populated, bad air, bad climate. It was sort of hidden from the West. Not too many poles. So it was perfect location. Any person who would like to vacation or have fun would ever go there. So I think first in history I went and I said, I want to rent a room for a month. So that's what I did, and I returned every single day. I didn't know exactly to what end. I just felt I'm not done. And I had some affinity from childhood. I'm not saying God came to me, nothing like that. The sky didn't open, but I sort of knew that it is, call it transformation. I can't finish this and be the same person who arrived here. And basically, at the end of the month, it started to become ridiculous. They called the police on me. Like, then they asked me, why are you coming here every day? You're very weird. And so I remembered from the Talmud, it's something that I didn't speak Hebrew back then, but I remember reading this story of when you really ran out of your ideas, but still the situation is fully unbearable to you. I remember, and this is a motif that is coming back in the Talmud, then you have to draw a circle around you. And you have to say, God, I'm not leaving this circle until you help. Mm-hmm. And it was snowing, just like in Lanzmann's film, this little episode that you showed. So I draw a circle in the snow, and I was standing there. And basically, what I felt after a while is that somebody entered the circle. There was no answer. There was no such thing. I couldn't tell you what. He was not saying anything to me. I just felt after a while I'm not alone. And so then I was done. And what I felt is that I have an answer. I'm not alone, but I didn't know yet what that answer is. And by the morning, I sort of dreamed what the answer is. And I felt like, if I can't become two of those people who were murdered here, at least I would like to become one. And anybody who studied the Holocaust knows that most of the victims were Orthodox Jews. And I wasn't even circumcised. But I knew that the next step for me is to go to Israel and discover and learn. And that's what I did.
I think that's a good point to close this discussion. I know there might be some questions. We are going to have a reception afterwards, so if anyone has questions, we can continue the conversation. I mentioned earlier that the last clip I have is a very short clip of testimony from Clara Swimmer. The Holocaust History Center is dedicated to teaching about this history through the voices of Holocaust survivors in our community, so I do want us to end this program by showing this clip of testimony from Clara Swimmer.
June 6th, we arrived nighttime to Auschwitz. And why I am mentioning the nighttime? Because I want to paint a picture about the arrival. The sky was red. There was a peculiar smell. There were a lot of dogs there barking. And we were thrown out from the cattle wagon. The door opened and pushed out from the cattle wagon. Heraus, heraus. I do remember the Nazis, how they were loudly saying heraus, heraus. And it was a lot of confusion all over. And I suddenly looked around and I couldn't find my mother. And that's where my story goes for 60 years. No mother. Why no mother? I couldn't believe for years, even after I arrived back to Hungary, what happened to my mother. I was told, but I didn't want to believe, that the Nazis, who really Germans, who gave us Goethe and Beethoven, they were able to do what they did. They decided that they will kill the Jews. And they perfected their plan the following way. Would you believe this? That they assigned engineers to build camps and to build crematoriums. And the roads, how they organized that from different regions, how the railroads, they should go into different places, so many places, so many people, that ultimately 6 million plus people, they were killed. Among them, my mother. And I go back again to Auschwitz, the night time, June 6th. I couldn't find my mother. Why I didn't find my mother? And probably most of you who were interested about my story read about it, that there was a doctor, shame on him, Dr. Mengele. I don't remember him because I don't remember anything, only remember what I was told, and I didn't believe for years. There were people coming out, heraus, from the cattle wagon, and they were divided into two groups. Group 1, who looked young and physically able, and the other group, would you believe it, babies, children, pregnant women, disabled people, sick people, they were going into the other group. They used to say, he said, right or left. What happened to me is I was in the group, the young group. I was taken to the shower place. They cut my hair, they removed the clothes from us, and they gave us clothes, and they gave us shower. And would you believe, in the same way, instead of the shower, the other group, including my mother, got the cyclone gas. She was 42. Anyway, she was gassed with the children, 1.5 million children. Would you believe this? That it can happen in the 20th century, something like this? You know, I always say, if you look at a baby or a child, and you have in your mind what the Nazis did to these children, you cannot imagine that how evil they were. Also, I always think about it, that the guard who did this, you know, did they do the voluntary job or they were assigned there? Why they were assigned there? Did they have any problem, mental problem? They must have had. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to do anything like that. Anyway, they perfected their plan. That was 1944, June, when they killed 600,000 Hungarian Jews, and that way in the crematorium of Auschwitz, that 24 hours, 7 days a week, they were working very efficiently, that they were able to, I never calculated the daily how many people they were killed and sent into the crematorium.